Now, the former racing driver Damon Hill has one of the most fruitful careers in the history of Formula One. He's now the subject of a new documentary.
In the 90-minute film about his life, Damon explores how he overcame challenges throughout his career to become an F1 world champion. We'll be speaking to him in just a moment, but first, a look back at his career highlights.
It's now 8 years since Graham Hill, one of motor racing's greatest characters, was lost to the sport. Since that time, his 23-year-old son, Damon Hill, has been racing motorbikes. And at Brands Hatch yesterday, wearing his father's helmet, he made his motor racing debut in the Formula Ford 2000 trophy.
You're on the verge of your first race. What are your hopes and ambitions? Where do you want to go in the sport?
Well, I'd like to go to the top. How do you win a championship? You've got to win the first race. I just became practical. Don't get involved in any issues. Just focus on your job.
Damon Hill is all over the back of Villeneuve. There's obviously a lot of fraught competition between these two. The gloves are off.
Michael had gone to Ferrari and they weren't quite ready yet. He wasn't that competitive. So it was between me and Jack.
Damon Hill takes the lead ahead of Jack Fielder. Victory in Australia for Damon Hill. And he's equalled his great father. 14 Grand Prix wins for son and father.
I won the first 3 races of the season.
I can't really describe it. It's been a long time since I've been leading the championship. Obviously, I just feel top of the world at the moment. I mean, it's great.
Thrilled to say that Damon is with us here on the sofa. Good morning.
Good morning.
It's fascinating watching this back because you get... The thing that really struck me watching this documentary are the highs and the lows. And we know that that's what professional sport is, isn't it? It's all of that. But it's about the mental ability to get through it. And you went through your fair share.
Yeah, well, I think it's... this particular story is also including my family. So what was going on, the home life behind it, and also the experience of having been the son of a world champion as well. So it covers quite a big arc, but it's a beautifully told story, and I didn't make the film. I was just in it. So it's beautifully put together by Alex Holmes, who's the director, and Simon Lazenby, who I worked with at Sky, and he was the producer. So I really just did the interviews and let them get on with it.
So what was going on at home, and what was it like being born into that world and into that maybe expectation?
Yes, I think there was a bit of maybe expectation. I rejected it because I was always asked when I was a kid, are you going to be a racing driver like your dad, you know, when you grow up? And I was more into bikes. So the story, the film shows that story and how that evolved and how I ended up in cars rather sort of by accident, really.
What sort of conversations were your mum and dad having with you?
Well, my dad was asked, before he died, he was asked if he thought his son would go into racing. And he said, no, I think he's too intelligent to do that. So I sadly disappointed him. But it was always around. And, of course, it was a lot more dangerous in those days. But ironically, I suppose, my story was that I was also teammates to Ayrton Senna when he was killed at Imola. Yeah. And so the danger never went away. It did get less than the time that my dad was racing. But you can see, I was always put in vehicles, and it was it was kind of expected, I guess, that I'd pick up the ability or the desire to be a racer.
Normalised it for a child.
Yeah, it was normal. That's the point, isn't it? That was my normal growing up world, was being around cars and Formula One.
You say it's less dangerous now, and of course, so many great developments in safety for drivers now. It was not without its risks when you were driving, and you touched there on the death of Ayrton Senna. And there's a real part of this documentary it's so moving about quite clearly the shock throughout the entire sport, but also for you, who knew him so well and drove so closely with him.
Well, I knew Ayrton I only knew him for a short period of time in the team that I was with, and sadly it was very, very short. But everyone knew Ayrton, and everyone knew his reputation. So he was a huge star of the sport, and a global superstar as well. So it was massively devastating. Of course, it was the same weekend we lost Roland Ratzenberger as well. So he was affected by that. So that is inevitably part of that story, because it threw me into a position to be in contention for the World Championship. at the end of the year with Michael Schumacher. So there's quite a drama attached to that whole '94 season.
And what was that like for you, the death of your peers, and knowing that it's changing your trajectory? Mentally, does it knock your confidence? It must be a very sort of confusing state to be in.
Well, it was shown at the Manchester Film Festival last night, and I was asked that question by the audience at the end, and I think that the point of the story is that it shows how you can overcome all of these things that are thrown at you. And it's a story of stuff being thrown at me, whether I lost my dad or when we had our first child, Oliver, who was born with Down syndrome. And, you know, Georgie plays a huge part in this documentary, giving her version of me, the other side of the trials and stuff, because it involves these episodes involve your family. They involve your life. You're not just an automata in a racing car.
And they just have to roll with it.
You have to make decisions together. That's really the point, is that, you know, you're in it together and you have to conclude whether or not it's worth it. You know, after Imola, we had that discussion. Well, why are we doing this? We have children. I have 2 children at that point, and we now have 4. But, you know, you do have to make the right decisions, and putting your life on the line when you've got a family is you know, you have to be doing it right.
How did you make that adjustment? You know, the world would see you then as an F1 champion, or, you know, see you at an elite level of your sport, and then you go home and you're just dad.
Yes, that's right.
You know, how do you make that switch?
Well, I always thought it was kind of grounding. I mean, I'd be putting the bins out, you know, after I'd won a Grand Prix, and then I'd be changing nappies and all the rest of it. And that's the beautiful thing about that, is that there is real life, the things that we're all affected by, which are the really core things in life. And then there's this peripheral thing, which is berserk and totally artificial, but you choose to do it. And somehow that also is real life. That also is how we show what we're made of. We create these challenges for ourselves so that we can feel good about ourselves, I suppose.
And perhaps the secret of success is being able to flip from one world to the other and just make a clean separation between them.
I don't think... I think it's helped me stay grounded. I think you can get swept up if you just live in the Formula One world. Yeah. It's unreal, and it's heavily energised by the media as well. So you can get to the point where you think there's nothing else that's important, when obviously it clearly is. I mean, we live in a bubble in F1. We travel the world, and there's all the real stuff going on around that you already had on the news today. But when you're in the centre of it, there's so much attention, so much media. It does feel like it's very, very important.
Has it changed? I mean, I look at some of those images. They feel to me, you know, I remember them, you know, from growing up in sort of the 90s and stuff.
You're right in the zone, by the way. I get all the young lads who are now grown up.
But I look at it and it feels like such a different era in terms of how the sport has changed as well. Quite clearly, some brilliant inventions for safety, but it feels like a very different sport, maybe more commercial. Am I wrong?
It's become more sophisticated in the way it communicates.
Slick.
So the messenger, and so the Netflix series, of course, is one of the famous things. But they're adept. The drivers that come in are properly primed. They're properly coached from a very early age. So they would have started when they were 5, and then in their teens they would have had probably training, coaching and stuff. They're used to the media and talking to camera and stuff like that, which we didn't have. I was on the cusp of 2 worlds. The previous world was the Nigel Mansells and the kind of wild guys who just turned up to be racing drivers, and they hated cameras and they hated interviews and they didn't want to do it and they didn't have to.
It's part of the game now, though, isn't it?
It is very much. It's a huge part of the game. So I think Lewis Hamilton had his picture taken outside the Ferrari building Enzo's at Maranello, and it had like 5 million views or something like that, the most of any driver in Formula One.
Damon, so nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for taking the time.
Part of that history.
Yeah, it's really well worth watch. The documentary, it's called Hill. It's showing as Damon says, part of the Manchester Film Festival. It's currently taking place across the city.
Lovely to see you.